Hi, I am Dmitro Shvets, your host at the Start Global Insights, where I interview experts in different countries about local business secrets and international expansion experience. Today my guest is Peter Kofler from Denmark. He is a Danish entrepreneur, founder of an education and consulting house KPI Communication, and the chairman of the Danish Entrepreneurs Association. He develops and supports entrepreneurship in Denmark for more than 20 years already and consults companies of various segments from small and medium to quite large corporations. And in addition to that, Peter is also heavily involved in supporting Ukrainian refugees and recently launched a business incubator where we together develop a program that will teach Ukrainians in Denmark how to launch own business. Hi, Peter. Welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Peter, before our conversation, I was reading a lot about Denmark and saw that it is quite highly ranked in various indices. For example, Denmark is number one in trading across borders index by doing business index of World Bank. It is number two in the World Happiness Report and number three in European Innovation Index. And in addition to that, it is ranked as number one country in the non-corruption index. So it looks like it is a perfect country for a happy, innovative expert without corruption. So let's get deeper in that. Imagine that, for example, a software development company or a candy producer from Ukraine would like to expand its sales to Denmark. What steps would you suggest?
Well, you need to penetrate the market. And let's say you're a candy company. I think a key word that listeners need to understand and reflect upon is trust. So in Denmark, everything we do is centered around trust. And if you come from the outside, you need to penetrate and understand this kind of trust. And some of the trust means that you need a lot of governmental approval, especially if it's candy, something that children put in their mouth, preferably in huge volumes. And this means that you will need to interact with the government authorities. And I think that being Ukrainian, this already takes energy out of you. But this is where, doing business in Denmark index favorizes Denmark, because we have authorities that are very, very flexible, communicative. It's very transparent. And I think also a key issue to understand working in Denmark is the degree of digitalization we have here. So EU every year publishes what they call the DESI index, so who's the most digital country. And I'm not going to say, and I seriously mean that sometimes I don't understand why we're number two in the happiness index, but I'm trying to make you understand that there are some areas where Denmark is special. So it means that you can almost do everything digital. You probably heard about Estonia, but Denmark is number one, as I said. So it means that even, I got divorced 6 years ago. We did that digitally. It took, 20 seconds. The second thing is that you don't need to know the right people because you're part of this circle. Then you're sort of like in the trust sphere. You don't have to, and this is maybe centered around corruption, that, it's not that you need to know the right people or to get into this, you need to pay money to this guy.
So it looks like everything is very transparent.
In general and comparatively, we are super transparent. And you need to rewind to the fact that we are just 6 million people in Denmark. So we are a little bit like the small village. We also, have a huge public sector, which means that we go to the same school, all of us. It's not that, you have the rich kids and the poor kids or whatever. I think you guys have a different logic to trust. There are There are two ways you can say, give a little trust, get a little trust. This is the kind of living rule we have in Denmark. But there's also the other side of the coin, which is, trust is good, but control is better. And I think that, this kind of conversation will be very generalized, because I'm talking about millions of Ukrainians and millions of Danish people.
We recently got made the podcast with Romania, and my guest said that they have the lowest trust index in Europe, in Romania. And I actually agreed with him that we have even lower. So this is a huge problem in Ukraine to trust each other in business and in society. And I think that this is a heritage of Soviet Union time. Yeah. So when you are watched from all the sides, and if you are not like in control of what you are saying, then you can end up in Siberia very quickly. This is like our history. Yeah. So we are changing. And I'm hoping that in Denmark it will influence on our guys there and girls, so it will be better. But still, it is an issue.
That's a very good question. But I think also to add to your story, I think the propaganda that you've been suffered from, that you could never trust messages from the state, and there were always motives behind it. I think that was very clear during COVID. We are more like lemmings. So when the government says go get a vaccine, we get the highest vaccine rate in the world. Trust is also about that you pay your tax. Trust is also about that you take a job if there is a job. So this has been challenging in Denmark, and since 2001, we've actually led a lot of the discussions in Europe around having, a harsh immigration policy. But what we've seen with the Ukrainians is a totally different story. And I said that we're training Ukrainian entrepreneurs. What are we proving with this program is that refugees are re-perceived as being a liability for society to an asset for society. And if we can do that with the Ukrainians, and I must say, I think it's easier because your women are amazing. So there's a lot of opportunities in the crossroad between entrepreneurship and being refugee. But I think the solidarity that comes with the trust have really, really proven itself with the Ukrainians. And we are. I think that Denmark is a very, very good bridgehead to the rest of Europe, because we have. It's a small, limited area where you can get your business model right, your product market fit right, tested in Denmark. If it works in Denmark, it's going to work elsewhere. And the degree of digitization means that no matter if you're B2B or B2C or whatever B2 government, you can do a lot of the sales and fulfillment online. We're used to this. So this is where you have like a very frictionless economy, but you need to penetrate the first hurdle, which means that you need to be legally here and make sure that you enter the trust circle.
How would you describe the business culture in Denmark? So trust issue understood. What else should be considered?
One thing that differentiates us from a lot of other countries like Sweden, France, Germany, it's two things. We've got very flat hierarchies and a very informal tone. And this is both internally and externally. No, there's this cultural trait that everyone is equal here. So if you are successful or whatever, people will still remind you that you're just, one of us, and talk to you as, a colleague or whatever. And I also see that when I get approached by Ukrainian, it's more formal. It's more humble. It's more, wrapped into formalities. And I think this is unnecessary in Denmark because, as I said, We were in the same school. We were running around in diapers in kindergarten next to each other. So hey, I'm me, you are you, and I think that being direct and informal is really key. And I have to say that you guys, once you lay down this formal facade, we actually have a good cultural fit. We have this, dark humor, sarcasm. All this is kind of like, in some cultures, when I say something sarcastic, they're like paralyzed, and I have to say, hey, it was a joke, and it kills everything. But I really feel that we are on the same bandwidth here. So let's we might as well have fun and be friends while we make money here together.
So it looks
right?
like it is one of the best countries to sell something, yeah? So you will be perceived as a person first and then as a salesman. How do you think if a company won't be established in Denmark, so at least for the first steps, yeah, to trade with your country, how to start the sales from abroad? Yeah, what would be at least in B2B? Yeah, what could you think as a first step to be done?
So there are two things to it. One thing is that we are one of the highest country with English skills as a second language. Um, but there's also a lot of organizations that are still, their corporate language is still Danish. Um, so it varies. If you're into a niche and people are used to purchase internationally, English is a non-issue. If you are more, broadly targeting SMBs or whatever, I think that this is a path you need to choose, because I'm often surprised how many Danish douchebags we actually have that, we talk English at our office, but we didn't do that until. That's not because of all the Ukrainians we have. It's because we have Finnish people there, and it took surprisingly a long time. And still, I have to say during lunch, "Hey, speak English, guys!" Right? And I also want to say that this distinction between B2B and B2C is, I think in Denmark, you should think that everything you do is business to people. So, when I was in business school, unfortunately 25 years ago, we were taught that there are huge business difference between those two, or even business to government. But I think a lot of it is around, there's a person in the other end, and if the person feels that it's the same conversion funnel that I experience when I buy my new hairbrush or whatever, it's the same kind of trust. It's not. I was taught that business to business is rational, functionalistic, data parameters, a lot of bullets, da 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 da. I don't think that's true, at least for Denmark.
When you are selling online, yes, so you are generating these leads. I think that in most cases, companies that will enter, they will prefer to start from B2B in any case. Yeah, so you will find dealers or distributors, or you will approach some supermarket chain to sell your goods. So how easy it is to find this decision-making persons? Yeah, then to contact them. In which way? Yeah, how would you approach this issue? Where to find people and how to contact them to get this first conversation, to establish this first trust?
Everyone in Denmark plays by the book, right? And if you are a little bit pushy and you say, hey, why don't I call the purchasing director directly? Because people will not do that. And you can often find his or her phone number online, or you can call the central number and ask for the purchasing director. So I think that a Danish company would be hesitant to do that, because that's not maybe how we do things. So I think that also if you bring in a little bit of your your way, or being creative and not afraid of pushing boundaries, I think that you can pick up pace that can overtake a lot of your local competitors.
I didn't have any experience of selling to Denmark, unfortunately, yet, but I had it in Sweden and in Germany, for example.
Hmm.
And it is almost impossible to reach a purchasing director by a secretary if you are calling the office telephone. So he is always out or is not reachable, or who you are, why are you calling, especially in Germany. Yeah? So in Sweden, more in more polite way, but still no reach.
Mm.
So you think this would
Yeah.
work in Denmark more easily?
I think it would work, but you need to think the touch points. Maybe you sent some materials before, so hey, yes, maybe I want, and this material was catchy. But also what we do, and this is just one of the small tricks. We buy, and it's very cheap. We buy a Swedish phone number, a Skype number. We buy a German Skype number, and they can even call back. Then it's Skype calling, and everyone have Skype installed with the same login, so people can pick up the phone. It's simple. So yes, I think it's possible to be much more direct.
I also suggest to my clients to dig a bit deeper about the potential clients before the call, yeah, so to know the potential pains that could be there, yeah, and to understand what would be valuable for them.
In some way, it's really simple, but a lot of people forget about it. It's the old story that you don't buy a drilling machine, you buy a hole in the wall, right? So, what is the problem? What is the pain? And if you can find a pain that keeps the purchasing director awake at night, then you have a chance. And I think that you need to be self-confident too, because you really need to make a person believe that you can save him a night's sleep.
Talking about the social media, what is the culture of contacting about the business issues? Is it LinkedIn only, or is it okay to contact people in Facebook, for example?
I think that people will not consider Facebook as their private sphere, whereas LinkedIn is the business sphere. And to be honest, it's in Denmark. It's been ruled illegal to contact people because it's GDPR. It's a direct inquiry that you haven't opt in for. If you send, emails or you all this, but I don't care. Um, but this is also the correctness of how we do things. But I think to be honest, there is a lot of goodwill right now towards Ukrainians, and I think that you guys would be silly not to ride on that wave. I'm not trying to be cynical, because you need business, and I think also we need to convince you that Ukraine's future will be in the West forever. So, and that's also our responsibility. If we start building business relations and work together, then you guys will flourish together with us. So I think that is like part of the story. It's obviously not the whole story, because if I get fired because I bought the wrong supplier, I cannot justify saying that, but I helped a Ukrainian, right? But I really think, and this is also how you can use the internet or social media. You can reach out and say, hey, I'm a Ukrainian business. We want to achieve this and that, right? And I also think that you guys are, from just what we see on news, we think that you guys are awesome people. You're amazing people. It sort of like gives a positive image of of Ukrainians. We want to help people, and this is what our whole society is about, and this is why we pay the highest tax in the world. By the way, we're back to number one in the highest tax rate. This is number one that I'm not too proud of.
Yeah. This is I've read about that. Talking about so coming back to sales, are there any culture of events, online or offline, where you could find your potential clients or sell?
Yes, definitely. But 10 years ago, events was something that you paid for and a lot of money. It was, maybe you would pay $2,000 for a 2-day event and you would go there. And now a lot of salespeople figured out, hey, we make free events and then we, push stuff down people's throats. So one, you really need to have something that is interesting. You cannot just, unless you have, a unique product in the world. But I assume most people don't, otherwise they would not be listening to this, right? This is one thing, and then it's colonized space. So how do you make it attractive for people to attend? You can get people to attend, but you need the right story. And when we evaluate, because we do a lot of this, it's and I think you can reflect on this yourself. So when you get an invitation, you see the speaker and evaluate the speaker before you evaluate the topic, right? I went to David Lynch event. I love his films, but it was about meditation, and I don't care about meditation. I just wanted to see David Lynch, right? The movie director. So this is kind of like get the right people, get the knowledgeable people, and we also have. If you go on the SMB market, there's this saying in Denmark that there's a certain percentage of people that cannot say no in the phone. So there is a market for outbound telemarketing as well. It's pushy. And then you also have the challenge, if people are always competing for the people that cannot say no, then the competitor will call and they cannot say no either, right? But a lot of businesses actually make their customer base this way. And then there's the golden nugget, and that is really partnering and cherry picking their database or network or what have you. I know the ambassador's wife in Denmark. She's doing a lot for female entrepreneurs, bringing them in, showing their products. There's a lot of design, textile industry. And she's been here for years. She knows a lot of people, and so the story goes. And as I said, Denmark is a small village. So within 2 links, you can reach every person in Denmark. You just need to find the right 2 links, right?
About the exhibitions, are they still working as a lead generation or sales channels?
I think it's very costly, and it is often long term that you have to go there. Sometimes you maintain your brand by slow showing your flag, and we need a bigger exhibition stall than the competition. So which is big as Samsung or Huawei kind of discussion. I think for most companies, if you want ROI on your effort, you will have a lot of operational cost, and your contact price will be very high. So depending on the contract value and your ability to massage afterwards, because the exchange at an exhibition is short. On the other hand, we do have exhibitions now where they set up. Or at least it's easier to convince them to set up, the Ukrainian corner. Again, we want to help you. Sometimes you need to tell us how we can help. We're not always, seeing. We play by the books, right? And if someone says, "Hey, we are 5 companies within this industry. Do you have, an available stall? They will probably say, yes, that's the coolest thing on the world.
We have many companies in food production. How easy it is to get on the supermarket shelves, yes, in the supermarket chains, and what is the procedure how to get there? Because in Ukraine, for example, we have a saying that if you made it to get into supermarket chain in Ukraine, then no other markets will be a problem for you.
I think that first of all, food security is absolutely key in Denmark. So you really, really need to live up to everything. It's not impossible, and as I said, authorities are quick, but this is absolutely key. Not only because this is a prerequisite to go to any reseller. In Denmark, but it's also, legally it's a risk. So make sure you get this right. You understand what it means, and then I think that you need to not aim for. Because if you go to the biggest supermarket chain, I can Google that quite easy. Maybe you're lucky, you can call the purchasing director, and he needs to see that your project or your product works. So don't use the big bullet to start with. Practice, make sure that it works. You can make it into a few specialized stores. A lot of people use the airport because it has it's a good place to test towards different audiences. But I see too many entrepreneurs that say, okay, if we can sell this to eBay, or if we can sell this to NASA, or if we could sell this to Tesco. Yes, but and I love the thinking, shoot for the stars, or at least moonshots, but make sure that you take the risk out of at least the market risk out of the hands of the big chains.
It's better to start with smaller shops, prove the idea, and then to go to supermarket chains showing that you have this data. Yeah.
And maybe you find a different distribution model, because everything is changing. And yes, supermarkets are critical, but when we have a birthday in the family, I buy the gifts online, the cake online, the bread on. It's still the birthday is offline, but who knows, in a few years we'll be celebrating online.
If you're lucky and you got this contact of buyer, or purchasing director, and then you are into negotiations, what are the common features of Danish business and negotiations?
I think it's a little bit back to the point that you want to work with people you like. So, be likable, take away the facade. You guys are super cool. We laugh at the same things. And I want to have a meeting with someone I can laugh with. And, that's probably how it is. I think you can be straightforward. And, people always complain that it takes a long time and decision time. But I think compared to, other markets, our decision time is fast. It's better to get a no today than a maybe, and then you might end up with a yes in too long time, and then your export strategy have changed 8 times. So I think by any means you should be straightforward and but of course realistic.
And how direct are these answers in terms of Danish business? Is it like yes is yes and no is no? Yeah. So
Yes, and I want to say that when I do business in Sweden, I am very frustrated because they are so shy of conflicts. So I don't ever get the truth, and I can't interpretate if is it worth going for the next meeting, or do they do it because they are polite and they said they would take this meeting. And I think that tells more about Denmark, that People are more straightforward, and I think in general they stick to the word. But I think one piece of advice is that when done business with some Ukrainians, we know that we will get the money. An agreement is an agreement, and sometimes you even have a contract. But then it's very pushy. Hey, I delivered. I can't see the money in my bank account, and then I'm like, okay, normally we have 30 days. Take it easy, right? And then the next day, hey, where's the money? And I'm like, don't you trust me? You need to play the game of trust, right? And if you show distrust to me, I will not trust you either, right? And I have all intentions to pay you. I just pay, and that's company policy. It takes 30 days, and that's it.
It was really interesting to talk with you, and I'm feeling that I need to pay attention of my clients Denmark in any case because it looks so attractive to enter. So the only one thing that is
Yeah.
not very good is the number of clients. So you are only 6 million.
Yes, exactly.
But in all other points of view, it is very attractive to enter, and I think that we need to dig deeper. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you. Very, very pleased to be here and happy to help with whatever. We are in this together, huh?